Hey, my name is Daniele, and I'm going to be reacting to my friend Patrick's 2022-2023 NBA predictions. Let's dive right in.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Patrick. I'm here making a tier list
Nice to
going
meet
into
you.
the NBA 2022-2023 season for the Western Conference. I'm going to do another one of these with the Eastern Conference as well once this one gets edited and uploaded. I think this is kind of a good prediction, a good video to maybe look back on at the end of the season and see, kind of where my head was at now and see how things might change over the course of the 82 game season. Now, I kind of split this into five tiers, as you can see on screen right now. We have the top three. We have the solid playoff teams, so kind of that like 4 through 7 seed. Then you have the fringe plan, which is that 7 through 10. So teams that might just barely be scraping into the playoffs, or a solid playoff team, but they kind of got unfortunate with some regular season games and will end up playing in the plan. Kind of the teams that just missed out. So the 11 12 seed who kind of already started their rebuild and they're looking to progress and become better in the future, but they were just a little too far off this season, and then those teams that have entered that full rebuild or will throughout the season. So I'm going to start from the top and work my way to the bottom. Um, I think the Warriors are, in my opinion, the best team in the Western Conference going into next year. For sure, a lock for top three.
So I'm going to let him speak, then I'm going to say my part at the end, like of each take.
Now I say this because when Klay Thompson came back, obviously they won the championship. But when Klay Thompson came back, they looked like one of the best teams in the league and definitely the best team in the Western Conference. I think that lineup with Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Steph Curry is an unbelievable lineup. I think Jordan Poole just provides a spark that the team was missing and is honestly crucial to the team's success. So I think the addition of Jordan Poole, kind of his stardom and breaking out into the league, is massive for this lineup, as well as adding Dante DiVincenzo to come off the bench. A solid role player. I thought he was phenomenal on the Bucks for what his role was, and they didn't really lose anybody of that much importance. Yes, they lost Gary Payton II, which is a small loss, but definitely a role player for the team who played his role well. Athleticism, defense kind of guy. But I don't think that their losses, as well as their losses outweigh their kind of gains with Dante DiVincenzo, as well as drafting Patrick Baldwin Jr. Although I don't think Patrick Baldwin Jr. is a super high potential guy, I think he could come in off the bench and just play solid. A few points per game, just kind of doing things on the court. He's not so much a shooter. And they don't really need that on this team because you have the greatest shooter of all time. So I just think that this team has basically the same team as last year, where they looked like one of the best teams in the league, and they're only going to get better.
So, for starters, I agree with this pick. I think that obviously your front court of, Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, I think those three they have cemented themselves as being legendary. Um, I'm particularly curious to see how Jordan Poole continues to develop. I think that he is the most important player on this team. Um, he has the highest development ceiling on this team. He can be a fourth splash brother. He can carry the team. I want to see how. I guess I want to see where he goes from here. He had a tremendous offseason. He exploded his, 3-point shooting, his range, his ability to finish at the rim. Spectacular. He's, must-see TV. I'm also curious to see how Kevin Looney is going to do. He's, a Robert Williams type big man, finisher at the rim, paint protector, rim protector, that type of thing. So I'm particularly curious to see how he's going to perform next season. But so far, I think this is a good pick. Steve Kerr also, legendary coach. They have great coaching staff, great front office staff. I think they're off in terms of off season. I think they've done all the moves they need to do. Dante DiVincenzo was good on the Bucks. Decent contributor off the bench because Giannis pulls so much inward on defense. You need some floor spacing and some outside shooting. So he started in that role for the Bucks. Not that the Warriors need any more shooting on their team, but in general, good first pick.
Now, kind of my next best team in the West, in my opinion, would have to be the Denver Nuggets. Now, Denver Nuggets have back-to-back MVP Nikola Jokic on the team, which, in my opinion, he's a top 3, if not top 2 player in the NBA in current status. Now, I think if Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray can come back this season, which they're rumored to do after Jamal Murray's ACL and Michael Porter Jr.'s back surgery, I think that this team is going to be unbelievable. I think Jokic means so much to this team, and he had, I want to say, around 17 win shares last year, and was honestly the sole reason the Denver Nuggets were in the playoffs and could even compete last season. And I think with the addition of Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray, as well as adding in KCP, Ish Smith, DeAndre Jordan to play backup center, as well as Bruce Brown to be a wing for them, kind of shoot a little bit, can play great defense. I think that the pieces they've added can definitely alleviate some of the stress off Jokic instead of being the only person on the team. That being said, I do think that they lost 2 very crucial role players for the team this year, that being Will Barton and Monte Morris. I think Will Barton was a little more important to this team than Monte Morris was, but I think both of them were kind of great players for their role in the team, and I think that they're going to be missed. That being said, I think the resurgence of Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray is just going to make this team so much more difficult to guard for opposing teams and provide so many more threats on the court. And I think that the Denver Nuggets, if Jokic can continue the level of play that he's at, which I have no doubt that he will, because I think he is a phenomenal basketball player, I think that the Denver Nuggets could be top 3 in the West, in my opinion.
So I think this is another fantastic pick. 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic. It's hard to not believe it in him, his leadership, and his on-court play. It's going to be interesting to see how in shape and in focus Michael Porter Jr. and the other guy come off the bench. Hopefully they build back a rhythm. I remember how deadly they were in the bubble, all 3 of them. So yeah, that's all a good pick. To me, I think it's crazy to see the difference in direction that the Nuggets took versus the Jazz, because we all remember those playoff series between the Jazz and the Nuggets where, Donovan Mitchell was going crazy, the Nuggets were going crazy, Jokic versus Gobert, all that kind of stuff. And you see the massive collapse that the Utah Jazz have undergone the last, season and into this summer. Rudy Gobert is nowhere on the offensive end. Donovan Mitchell is a powerhouse. He's a very good finisher, a very good shooter. I'm a big fan of his. So just in general, I'm just surprised at where the Jazz have gone versus where the Nuggets have gone and how much potential the Nuggets have for future success. Jokic isn't going anywhere. He just got signed on a massive max contract, most expensive contract in NBA history. So I'm all the praise in the world for the Denver Nuggets.
Second. And lastly, for the top 3, I'm going to put the Phoenix Suns. Now, this kind of has a question mark on it, as the Phoenix Suns, as of recording this on July 16th, have just re-signed DeAndre Ayton. That means he can't be traded till January 15th, 2023. But I know that there were some talks of maybe trading DeAndre Ayton or, the Suns being involved in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. I kind of see that difficult now with the inability to trade DeAndre Ayton for about 6 months. So I think that the Suns, best team in the West last season. They have the veteran leadership in Chris Paul. Devin Booker is a star for the team. DeAndre Ayton played very well last season. Played his role, was a great third option on the team, as well as the defensive standout of Mikal Bridges, who I think is very underrated and got a lot of praise this year, which was very good to see. As top 3 defense player of the year standings this year. So I think that the team basically going to be the same going into next season. In terms of moves that they did make, they didn't make a lot, but they did bring in Josh Okogie, but they lost JaVale McGee. The loss of JaVale McGee doesn't really bother me that much since DeAndre Ayton is still on the team and he was the majority minute getter at the center position. I think JaVale McGee was a great backup and can honestly be a serviceable starter next year. But I think that because the team is more or less the same, I see them still being a powerhouse in the West, placing top third at the end of the season.
So I have mixed opinions about this take. I think that the Phoenix Suns are going to be good, but my biggest concern with them is Chris Paul and how old he's getting. I think he's going to be either 37 or 38 next season. We've seen how spectacular LeBron has handled his age, and Chris Paul has been, at least more recently, more injury prone than LeBron James. So I wish Chris Paul the best. I hope that he stays in shape, but there is that general concern with the Phoenix Suns. That'll push Devin Booker into an even more intensive leadership role in the team. He'll need to carry games a lot more often, uh, and be put into more difficult situations. I'm a bit puzzled by the re-signing of DeAndre Ayton. In my opinion, he isn't worth $133 million that they're paying him. He is a pretty mediocre center by NBA standards. You have in the Western Conference, for instance, you have Jokic, you have Gobert, you used to have Porzingis, you have Christian Wood now in the Mavericks. Um, you have Anthony Davis when he comes back from injury. So, all of these star centers, and I just don't see how DeAndre Ayton compares to them. Um, how DeAndre Ayton ranks in that list of, star centers. Um, I think very highly of role players like Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, um, Cam Johnson, spectacular shooter Cam Johnson. Happy with his development and can't wait to see him grow. Him and Jordan Poole, both spectacular guys off the bench. But yeah, no, just in general, my two biggest concerns with them are um, Chris Paul's age and health, and how DeAndre Ayton chooses to step up his game now that he has a new contract. There's no more ambiguity in the air over whether or not he's getting traded or not, whether or not he's getting moved. Obviously the trade deadline is deep into January of this season. So by then, the Phoenix Suns will have a good grasp of his performance. I don't think that they're losing much by giving JaVale McGee to the Rockets or Nuggets. No, or Mavericks. I can't remember, one of the Texas teams. Um, I see the Phoenix Suns placing middle of the pack in the Western Conference, maybe the fifth or sixth seed. Um, but yeah, let's get back to it.
So now I'm going to move a little more fast through these next three. I think that the solid playoff contenders are going to be the Grizzlies, the Timberwolves, and the Mavericks. I think these teams, barring any injuries, are pretty much locks for the playoffs. I think that they could end anywhere between that like 4 through 6 seed. I think Memphis had a great year last year. I think John Morant is unbelievable. What he brings to the team, the entertainment value of the way he plays basketball, the athleticism, just the ultimate drive to win. I think that John Morant is a top 10 player in this league, and I think that even outside of John Morant, the Memphis Grizzlies have such a deep team. I want to say that they were like 20-2 or had an insane record when John Morant wasn't on the court last year. So even if John Morant doesn't play every game, I still think that the Memphis Grizzlies have such a good team and such a great deep roster going into the season. They did end up losing Kyle Anderson and D'Anthony Melton over the offseason, and I think D'Anthony Melton is kind of overlooked as a piece of this Grizzlies team. I think he was crucially important with his shooting, and it could be missed. That being said, they did bring in Danny Green, so kind of a veteran replacement for D'Anthony Melton. I think Kyle Anderson's a great role player, so another player who will be missed. The Minnesota
So before he goes on to Minnesota, just the thing about Memphis. Um, my bold prediction for Memphis is that John Morant will be an MVP candidate, an MVP front runner this season. He has burst onto the scene incredibly. He has left Zion Williamson behind in terms of stardom in the NBA. Zion is nowhere to be seen. We're gonna see how um, how athletic and how fast he is and how in shape he is this season. But I have all the faith in the world in John Morant and how he is going to carry the Memphis Grizzlies to deep into the playoffs. I see them being the third seed, taking the spot away from Phoenix in Patrick's list here. Um, Personally, I think that with how well the team played last season without John Morant, I think that some new coaching methods and new plays and you know experience of going into the playoffs will bolster their success this year. Going up against a tough opponent like the Warriors in last season's playoffs probably taught them a couple things that they need to know for this season. So, sorry for the coughing. I think that they have a lot of potential. John Morant will be an MVP candidate. I want to see Jonas Valanciunas take a step in the forward direction. He is another European big man that I want to see do well. He was really good on New Orleans and in Toronto back when DeRozan and Lowry were on that team. He was a great contributor for them. So in general, I think very highly of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Timberwolves. Obviously, everybody knows about the sweepstakes for Rudy Gobert. They gave up a lot, multiple first round picks. They lost Pat Bev, Michael Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. So I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves going into next year with kind of the 4-5 being Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert could be a pretty impressive duo. You have the stretchability of Karl Anthony Towns at the 4 position with the defensive powerhouse and inside presence of Rudy Gobert. I think you lose a bit losing Pat Bev as well as Michael Beasley. I think D'Angelo Russell's going to need to take a little bit of a step up this season, kind of be a facilitating point guard, and if he provides a threat, I think Anthony Edwards could blossom into even more than he was last season, and this team could be a serious threat.
So, I think that the Minnesota Timberwolves have some of the biggest question marks in the NBA right now. First off, how is Rudy Gobert going to perform against another big man like Karl Anthony Towns? Cat is one of the best shooters, big man shooters in the league. Obviously coming off a 3-point contest victory. I think that, he's a bona fide star in the NBA. Anthony Edwards is also on the rise. They have a bright future with Ant-Man. But I just don't quite know yet how Gobert is going to fit into that system. Will the paint be too crowded? Will there not be enough space on the perimeter? Stuff like that. I don't know. I just don't know where Rudy Gobert fits into their system. It'll be interesting to see what the coaching staff does, how they put players around Cat and Gobert, if they stagger Cat and Gobert's minutes, because I don't see how 2 big men on the floor at the same time like that would work. We saw how weird it was in Philadelphia with Simmons and Embiid. I know Simmons is technically a point guard, but he's 6'9", 6'10", something like that. It didn't work out too good for Philly. Philly were always a contender, but they weren't ever that step forward. It took solid performance from Jimmy Butler to bring them into the playoffs. So going back to Minnesota, I think that the second biggest question mark is going to be on how D'Angelo Russell performs. Without starting or backup caliber point guard like Patrick Beverley, I think that D'Angelo Russell has big shoes to fill. He was very shy in last season's playoffs. Didn't live up to the hype. His numbers were mediocre at best. Very shallow from his Golden State and Brooklyn days. So I think that in order for this team to progress further, I think D'Angelo Russell needs to take a big step forward. In terms of where I have them in my standings, I would see them again as a 7th or 8th seed play-in team. I don't quite know yet how they'd fall into place. I don't see them being closer to the front. So that's my opinions on the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Uh, Rounding out the solid playoff teams, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Over the offseason, I think they had a phenomenal signing in Christian Wood. As well as bringing in JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee is going to be kind of Boban's replacement on the team, another 7-footer. I'm actually sad to see Boban not with Luke anymore. I think that they were a hilarious and entertaining duo. But I think JaVale McGee can be a super serviceable starter, super underrated center in the league. Kind of gets some flack for his Shaqtin' a Fool days, but I think he's going to be a great player and a good replacement for Boban. They also lost Jalen Brunson, so I think that this team takes a little bit of a step down because they kind of play a little more big man ball now with Christian Wood and kind of losing that score and that spark in Jalen Brunson. But because Luka's such a ball dominant player and Luka playing at the ability he has kind of ever since coming into the league, I don't see that the Dallas Mavericks losing Jalen Brunson hurting their chance at the playoffs at all. I think Luka's going to carry this team no matter what, and I think the addition of Christian Wood as well as having JaVale McGee will kind of alleviate some pressure and allow for some more options than just solely Luka.
First off, nice pickup truck passing in the background. The Dallas Mavericks have some of the greatest potential in the West. I know I've thrown around that word potential quite a lot so far. But, Luka is one of the top 10, top 5 best players in the NBA right now. I think adding a more traditional big man like Christian Wood only bolsters their roster. I predict he's going to start every game. I don't think JaVale McGee is going to get reliable starting minutes for them. His age and his lack of mobility, to me, are weaknesses that prohibit him from starting consistently. Kristaps Porzingis was an interesting experiment for Dallas. Being a 7'3" player who can shoot the three, finish inside, protect the paint at a decent level. Him and Luka's chemistry just wasn't there 100%. So I'm interested to see how Christian Wood and Luka coexist, if not flourish together. I am kind of sad to see Boban leave because I know that Luka Doncic and Boban Marjanovic had a spectacular relationship. I predict they'll obviously still be friends outside the locker room. But to bounce off what Patrick said about the departure of Jalen Brunson, the Mavericks have Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie showed up big in the playoffs among an ambiguous situation. When Luka was out with injury at the start of the playoffs, it was really Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie fighting it out for who got point guard, shooting guard rights, who could take a majority of the shots and carry the team. And I think that with Brunson gone, Dinwiddie is going to have a greater role on the team. I want to see him come back to how he was like in Brooklyn. I see him performing like he did in Washington next to Bradley Beal. We saw flashes of Brooklyn Spencer Dinwiddie in Washington, and I see that coming back again in Dallas. Only Luka is a lot better than Bradley Beal, so I suspect that he's going to get more passing opportunities, more open shots, stuff like that. So I think that obviously Spencer Dinwiddie has more experience. He's been in the league for longer than Jalen Brunson, so I think that letting Jalen Brunson go won't be a detriment to the Mavericks. Oh, and I think that the Mavericks will be somewhere around the 5th, 6th seed. I think they'll comfortably make the playoffs because, you can't ignore Luka, you can't ignore Christian Wood, you can't ignore Spencer Dinwiddie. I think that, they're going to be a spectacular playoff team. We saw how crazy Luka went in their playoff run, Western Conference Finals. That was a crazy season. So I think they'll be comfortably 5th or 6th seed.
Into these borderline play-in and fringe playoff teams, I have these four. I have the Clippers, the Lakers, the Pelicans, and the Blazers. Now, let me start with the Clippers. I think that the John Wall signing is underrated. I think for two years, kind of 13, 14 million is a steal. That's 7 million a year. I think that John Wall is a third option as your third best defender, having to guard John Wall if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play. I think if he's even 50% of what prime John Wall was with the Wizards, I think that the Clippers could be scary. You know, they still have Reggie Jackson, who I think is a phenomenal player. They also brought in Moses Brown, who, as a Thunder fan, I mean, I know Moses Brown. I know what he's capable of. He could get you 20 boards on any given night. He's a phenomenal inside presence. I think and he's a young player. They did lose out on Rodney Hood, but I don't think he was that important to the Clippers. So I think if healthy, if Kawhi and Paul George can play, as well as John Wall, you do have injury concerns about this team. I think that the Clippers could easily be a 7 seed, kind of top of that play-in territory. And honestly, if all those players can stay healthy that I just mentioned, I can see the Clippers doing way better than this.
So the Clippers are another intriguing team to me. I think that the Clippers are the better Los Angeles team. That shouldn't be a very hot take. John Wall is a player that intrigues me a lot. Silly contracts aside and not playing and all that stuff aside, I think that people have been sleeping on John Wall a lot. His spinning layup package is disgusting. We have faint memories of him and Bradley Beal torching the league in Washington. And like Patrick said, if we get even a glimmer of hope that John Wall is going to be an ounce of his former self, I think that the Clippers have chance to be, again, another top 5 team in the West. To me, I have them interchangeable between Dallas and Los Angeles Clippers being a 5th or 6th seed. Depending on how the whole Christian Wood situation works, I think I would put the Clippers at 5th and the Mavericks at 6th. That's how I would see it playing out. Obviously, hopefully we get Kawhi Leonard back this season. Hopefully Paul George is as dominant as he's been. Reggie Jackson, as Patrick mentioned, is another spectacular player that the Clippers have on their roster. I'm curious to see how Zubac, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm curious to see how he does. Another European big man with decent potential. So, yeah, I think the Clippers could be, if all goes well for them this season and John Wall plays productively, I think they could be a good 5th seed.
Kind of another one of these injury concern teams is the Pelicans. Now, I don't have a lot of injury concerns outside of Zion, but I think that Zion being healthy is so important to this team. With the addition of CJ McCollum kind of halfway through the end of this and towards the end of the season of last year from the Blazers, Brandon Ingram, as well as kind of the emergence of the defensive kind of clamps that Jose Alvarado brings, I think the Pelicans have a good core, which is just amplified by the addition of Zion playing. I also think that the Pelicans had one of the best draft picks in the draft, that being Dyson Daniels. I think Dyson Daniels was phenomenal last year in the G League, and I think that, going into the season, he's one of my favorite prospects, and I think he could really flourish on the New Orleans Pelicans. Moving to the next team, the Los Angeles Lakers.
So, the Pelicans to me aren't anything special. I don't see them making the play-in either this season. I have enormous respect for CJ McCollum. I was a big fan of his on the Blazers. I go to Lehigh's main competitor, Lafayette. CJ McCollum obviously went to Lehigh. So major perks to CJ McCollum, big fan. But I think Zion still needs time to get back up to speed in the NBA. I don't see them making much noise, at least early on. I suspect they'll go on a major losing streak early on as Zion gets back into his groove, back up to NBA speed. Um, Another player that I think needs to step up his game is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram early on in his career drew comparisons to Kevin Durant. Similar frame, very lanky, very skinny, can shoot the three, can finish at the basket, pretty decent on defense. I think that, Brandon Ingram just needs to take another step. He needs to, get the ball in his hands, command his position from the coaching staff, just assert leadership on that team. Patrick mentioned Jose Alvarado. I think that Jose Alvarado won't make much noise this season. That might be a hot take. His play style was a gimmick last year, with the whole coming from behind the hoop or from the players' benches to try and steal the ball. He got into a big flare-up with Chris Paul last season. And I think that the league kind of already figured him out. He's not a very productive offensive scorer. And defensively, unless he comes up with new tactics and new tricks, I think that he's not going to make much noise this season. I think that, last year we already saw what he's capable of. And the Pelicans didn't make it very far. So I see them missing the play-in game in the playoffs entirely.
I struggle to see the Los Angeles Lakers outperforming a play-in spot with their current roster. Now, as of recording this, Kyrie and Kevin Durant haven't been traded. So going into next season with Russ taking his player option, you have kind of the same big three. And I struggle to see that team making it work. It seems like they almost don't want to play with each other. There's a lot of kind of ball dominance between Russ and LeBron, and I just don't see the team outperforming the play-in. It's kind of sad as LeBron's going to the end of his career. I mean, I think he's kind of just riding it out till Bronny gets back. He was still an elite player, top 5 last year. Almost. I think he actually was a 30-point scorer for the Lakers. So it's kind of sad to see that LeBron might just be a play-in team. But the Lakers, having not made a lot of moves, they kind of brought in Thomas Bryant, Lonnie Walker, Troy Brown Jr., kind of these role players, but I think the role players that they lost, being Avery Bradley, who at this moment is still a free agent, so could re-sign, but Malik Monk, you kind of lose the 3-and-D of Avery Bradley and the explosiveness and kind of the spark off the bench of Malik Monk. So I actually think that the Lakers might be a little worse going into the season. So I don't see them playing that much better than last season, but that being said, I think they could scrape in a play-in.
So I have a particular issue with Patrick's take on the Lakers. While I said previously that I think the Clippers are the better LA team, I think that it's hard to look past LeBron James. At 37, 38 years old, he is performing incredibly well. Still one of the top 5, top 10 players in the NBA at that age. The Lakers will also get Anthony Davis back from injury. And Russell Westbrook just cashed in on his player option. Kendrick Nunn will be coming back this season from his injury. He was an under-the-radar signing by the Lakers from the Miami Heat at the beginning of last season. Kendrick Nunn finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting during the Miami Heat bubble year. He finished behind Zion Williamson and John Morant, and Kendrick Nunn was an underrated player. He played briefly for the Golden State Warriors G League team, spent some time training with Steph Curry, and obviously spent 2 years in Miami Heat culture. So, that experience with the Miami Heat coaching staff, LeBron James' experience with the Miami Heat coaching staff, I think that the Lakers have some serious potential to make noise. I can see them being a good 7th spot. So I honestly, I don't know. I think I might walk back what I said about the Clippers and put them at the fourth seed and have the the Lakers and the Mavericks battle it out for the 5th and 6th seed. The Suns can move all the way down to seventh. The Timberwolves can move down to eighth in my list. And I think the biggest thing with the Lakers, I think the biggest thing for the Lakers' potential to move this season will be their new coach. They just picked up a new coach, firing their previous one. I forgot his name. I think that LeBron James, having been known for being Le GM, Le Coach, love whatever you choose to call him, he has obviously a humongous front office influence. I think that LeBron James has already shown respect toward this new coach on social media, as well as some other Los Angeles players and representatives around the league. This new coach has heavy weight on his shoulders, and I'm very curious to see how he performs, how he orchestrates the Lakers. Russell Westbrook had a disastrous season last year, shot terribly from the three, took a lot of flack for his turnover rate and how poor his production was offensively. So I want to see Russ get back in line. Maybe the coach can instill some discipline and some newfound trust in the offensive plan. But yeah, just in general, I think the Lakers have some decent potential. Middle pack playoff team at best. So let's move on.
And then over to the Trailblazers. I think the Trailblazers made a few good moves this offseason. I think that bringing in Jeremy Grant and Gary Payton are two great pickups. I think Gary Payton played phenomenally in his role for the Golden State Warriors, as I kind of mentioned earlier in the video. And Jeremy Grant, ex-Thunder player, played for the Pistons. I think he could give you 20 points a night over the season and kind of lift some weight off Dame, who just signed a 2-year, $120 million contract, 60 a year. So I think that Dame, with his loyalty to the Blazers, as well as almost being like a LeBron type, like the GM of the team almost, putting in heavy praise for Shaedon Sharpe, and eventually like the Trailblazers actually selecting Shaedon Sharpe at the draft. I think that if the Trailblazers can get that production out of Jeremy Grant, and Shaedon Sharpe can kind of be a top 5, top 10 rookie from this class in terms of production, coming off no play time last year, I think that the Trailblazers could make the playoffs here with Dame and Jeremy Grant. They ended up losing Eric Bledsoe and Joe Ingles, which is a little unfortunate, but I think that the Blazers could scrape in a play-in team.
So I agree with this pick on the Blazers. I think that they have the potential to upset one of the play-in spots and make the 8th seed. If my pick on the Phoenix Suns or the Minnesota Timberwolves for the 7th and 8th seed come in to be correct, I would love to see the Blazers be a 9th seed and upset one of those two, preferably the Suns. I have a lot of faith in Dame. He's a star, one of the best shooters in the league. We've seen what he can do to dismantle a team, like he did with the Russell Westbrook, Paul George Thunder teams. Sorry, Patrick, I know he's an OKC fan. But I can totally see Dame doing that again to the Phoenix Suns. Yusuf Nurkic, their star big man, I need to see more progression from him. He's a very gritty, very heavy defensive force. I want to see him make some advancements in the offensive end. I think that losing CJ McCollum will hurt them offensively. Him and Dame's relationship was very strong and helped the team flow offensively. But I think the additions that they made, Gary Payton, we saw how good he was on the Warriors this postseason, a new champion. He has immense playoff experience now with the team. Hopefully he can help the coaching staff, who I think is Chauncey Billups is their coach now. So I think that having gone through the Warriors system, player development, I think that he can sprinkle some Warriors-ness on the Portland Trailblazers. Maybe some Warriors-style floor spacing, some offensive game plan, stuff like that. I think that I think the Trailblazers can be a decent playoff team and potentially upset a seventh or eighth seed in the play-in game. So I agree with Patrick's take on this.
Now for these just missed out teams, I have the Thunder and the Kings. Now to me, these teams are interchangeable. I think these guys are going to be 11 and 12. The Thunder, as a Thunder fan myself, I might be a little biased, but I have a lot of optimism going into the season. I think that the Chet draft pick, it's a great pick. I do have concerns with Chet's frame. I don't think it's going to hold him back from being a threat that has to be covered on the court. I think that the concerns about his frame are a little kind of over dramatic. I don't think that it's going to hinder him that much in his rookie season. I don't think he's going to come out and drop 20 a night, but I think that he's going to be a serviceable player for the Thunder.
So I'm going to pause it right here and kind of speed through the part where he starts talking about the Kings. Because he is an Oklahoma City fan, this is the bulk of the video. He goes into length about Chet and Lou Dort. I've since appreciated Lou Dort's contribution to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was not familiar with the Oklahoma City Thunder post Westbrook. I know that they made a deep run against the Rockets in the bubble. Went to 7 games. That was a crazy series. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is clearly the leader of that team. I'm curious to see how Chet and Shai, how do I say this? I'm curious to see how they, I don't want to say coexist. I can't think of the word. I'll just move on for now. I think that the two Jalen Williamses, I think that's a spectacular pick for the Thunder. Right now, they're probably bench players at best, but I would love to see both of them on the floor at the same time. I would love to see, some hilarious messes up from the television announcers over, Jalen Williams, pass to Jalen Williams, all that kind of stuff. I would love to see that from them. So I think that Patrick's pick on them just missing the playoffs is a good pick, particularly because Chet needs time to get up to speed. Zion and Ja Morant missed the playoffs during their rookie season, and we saw how crazy and dominant they became. So I think that the Thunder will propel themselves on a similar route. I see them being a playoff team next year, the season after this one. But as of right now, I think that they are an outside loomer looking in.
So I think Jalen Williams kind of 6 feet a lot of, and the Thunder also drafted a France 10 forward just this season. I think that he's more of a long-term option. So I think that the Thunder kind of 1 or 2 years into the rebuild now with Shea, Josh Giddey, like Lou Dort, all of these to a contender. Thunder also lost Isaiah Roby. That was a huge piece. He was so moving on to the Kings.
Before we get to the Kings, I missed Josh Giddey. I think that he also this past season showed flashes of greatness. Him alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be a crazy duo. Just my prediction for the Thunder is just keep trucking. Keep developing. Sam Presti is a great GM. I trust that the front office and coaching staff can generate a great game plan for that team. Just keep trucking. Keep developing. Keep pushing forward.
The Kings, over the offseason, brought in Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk. Kevin Huerter.
I'm sorry, nobody cares about the Kings. The Kings aren't going to make much noise this season. Domantas Sabonis is probably going to be their star player. Is Buddy Hield still on the Kings? I don't know if he got traded to Indiana, because I know that Malcolm Brogdon got traded to Indiana. and now is on the Celtics. I know that Tyrese Halliburton was the big person in the trade. I think that he's going to be great for Indiana, and the Kings will dearly miss him. But I don't see the Kings making much noise this season at all.
For Tyrese Halliburton, losing Dante Davis, Malcolm Brogdon, or they also end up like that guy where he is NBA. Not this season, but definitely could be. And then going into full rebuild, I mean Rockets last place in the in the Western Conference last year. I think that their rebuild was just starting last year. You know, they kind of got rid of all their players. They lost Christian Wood. They lost John Wall. They brought in Boban and Sterling Brown. So they're clearly getting worse. That being said, they had a high draft pick in Jabari Smith, who honestly hasn't looked overly impressive in Summer League, but then again, it's just Summer League, so I'm not trying to overreact. They also have Ty Washington and Tari Easton, who I think has played phenomenally for them in Summer League, and he's kind of looked like that guy when Jabari Smith has been struggling to create his own shot. So I think that the Rockets have made some good moves to kind of bolster their young depth alongside players like Alfred Sengun, Jason Tate, Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green. So I think the Rockets have just kind of started that rebuild kind of maybe year two after last year. So I don't think they're going to be anything other than a bottom three team in the West, but that.
I completely agree with this. I don't think the Rockets are going to make much noise at all this season. Bottom three team. They lost Christian Wood. They lost John Wall. They lost Victor Oladipo. They lost Kelly Olynyk, and they lost, all of their main contributors. All of their potential star players. They just drafted Jabari Smith, so I'm curious to see how he's going to pan out. He's been quiet and cold in Summer League so far, but who gives a crap about Summer League? It's their entry to the NBA that matters most. So, yeah, nobody cares about the Rockets.
That being said, they are looking to move towards the future, maybe compete in a few years. The Jazz are kind of a question mark because they ended up trading they ended up trading Rudy Gobert, and now they are listening to trades for Donovan Mitchell. So, from my understanding, I think that the Jazz should end up trading Donovan Mitchell to a little more of a contender now that Gobert is gone. And I think the Jazz are kind of in a way worse position than they were. I think that the Jazz should just hit the full rebuild button and try to get as much value as you can for Donovan Mitchell. I know trades to the Knicks were rumored, but the Jazz asked for like 6 first-round picks alongside a plethora of players. So I think if they can extrapolate value out of Donovan Mitchell and kind of set up this full rebuild, it would be kind of a massive move for the Utah Jazz. Over the offseason, the only players they...
I'm just going to pause it here because he starts talking about offseason. I think that, as I said previously when I was talking about the Nuggets, it's crazy to me the difference in trajectory that the Jazz took versus the Nuggets took. The Nuggets are championship contenders, front-running playoff team. They have an MVP candidate in Jokic, and look at how disastrous the collapse has been for the Utah Jazz. I think if the Utah Jazz keep Donovan Mitchell this season, I could see them finishing in front or behind of the Thunder. Kind of in that 10-11 spot. Just because Donovan Mitchell, being the star that he is, he can carry the team despite how terrible the players that they have. I don't know if Hassan Whiteside is still on the Jazz. He showed some flashes of greatness when he was on the Heat. There were some trade rumors of him coming back to the Heat, but I don't think we're gonna do anything with that. But yeah, just in general, it's unfortunate to see the direction the Jazz took. If Donovan Mitchell does get traded and the team goes into a full rebuild, they're one of the 3 worst teams in the league. So I can see where Patrick put them on this list. But I think that if Donovan Mitchell stays, they're in with the Thunder in kind of that, missing the play-in tournament barely tier.
They really picked up were the trades of Pat Bev, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt, who I think still has potential as kind of that easily be a good player. Mode, trade Donovan Mitchell, least, you have the San Antonio Spurs. The only real addition they brought this offseason was Isaiah Roby, losing both DeJounte Murray to the Hawks as well as Lonnie Walker. Um, they also brought in Jeremy Sochan out of Baylor in the draft. I think he could be a good player. I think Baylor had a great system in college, and I think Jeremy Sochan could fit well within the defensive kind of Greg Pop system.
So I'm gonna stop it just after he mentioned the Greg Pop comment. To me, I think the San Antonio Spurs are one of the saddest teams in the West. You know, Greg Popovich won't stay in the NBA forever. He's getting really old, and it's sad to see the Spurs not be a playoff team. Greg Popovich is the most winning coach in the NBA. He's one of the best historical NBA coaches. He led the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker dynasty. And I think when Pop retires, which could be at the end of this season, I would not be surprised. That might be my hot take of this whole video, is that Greg Popovich will retire at the end of the season. It's just sad to see, that the Spurs go down like this. Ever since they lost Kawhi in that DeMar DeRozan trade to Toronto, I think the Spurs just won't recover for a conceivable period of time. They're going to be a bottom 5 team in the league for the next couple of years. And I'm just generally disappointed at where the Spurs are going, especially considering how great Greg Popovich is. He deserves to have, at least some success at the tail end of his coaching career. And it sucks to see a losing team like this tarnish his legacy. So those are my thoughts on the 2022-2023 NBA season. To run my picks back in order, I have the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Clippers, the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Suns, the Timberwolves, the Trailblazers, the Thunder, the Jazz, the Pelicans, the Rockets, the Kings, and the Spurs. In that order. That is my 2023 list. And, well, thank you for watching. Good video from Patrick. Good list. I agree with some of your picks, some of your takes. In general, my thoughts for the Western Conference. Again, I'm extremely hopeful that the Warriors will continue their magic run. They are one of the most historical, most achieving, craziest dynasty in the NBA. It's awesome that they were able to make a statement after Kevin Durant departed. They acquired some draft picks. They, developed Jordan Poole. I can't wait to see how crazy Jordan Poole is going to be this season. He is, as I said in the beginning of this video, he's going to be the most important player for their team. And yep, I think this season is going to be one of the best seasons yet. So, thanks for watching.